Hi, Heather here from Creative Kiwi. Please join me in this video that shows the techniques that we use to make our in the hoop fall wreath. Now I think you can see there on the designs, obviously Halloween's coming up, so I think the beauty of this design is you can start off with the plain wreath, and then if you like, you can just add other elements to make it more of a 3D version. Now, as you can see there, I think I've added some of my Halloween freebies there. We've got the bat and the pumpkins, and I think the skull. The skull's actually not a free design, but you can get the idea there. You can add all sorts of things. I think we've got here coming up soon is the grape. She kind of keeps more with the actual fall idea, and the designs I've shown here are just ones that I had hanging around, so I'm sure there's lots of other things, extra leaves you could add, all sorts of things you could add to make the wreath your own. Now I thought I'd talk about sizing and backing options. So I've made quite a few of these different, I was testing the design, and that's one reason that I'm doing the design 5x7 and 6x10 only. I made the design in bigger hoops, and it was just too big, and it was just floppy, and that was even with using heavy felt as a backing. So I decided just to keep it as a 5x7, and that way I'm confident that you're going to have a good stitch out. So in my final design I used, it's actually called Matilda's bag batting, but it's just like a heavy felt, and I found that for me gave the best result. But you can use fabrics. Obviously I would use an iron-on stabiliser to the fabrics, and that way you could make it reversible if you like. If you look at the back of my sample, you can see it's obviously like the white felt, and I didn't change the bobbin threads, so you can see it's tidy, but it's not absolutely perfect. What you could do is still use a one colour felt on the back, but change your bobbin threads as you do it, and that way you would have like the white wreath at the back with the correct colours. Or you can, I do show you how you can actually use matching fabric. It is completely up to you. In terms of what you need to make the wreath, it's all included in the instructions. This video really is just to show you the techniques we use, but basically you can see there are 5 pumpkins, so you'd need 5 pieces of orange fabric, about 6x6, and then there's 5 leaves, so 5 bits of green fabric, and then you've got the bow. So all the detail is in the instructions. For each hooping you'll also need a piece of pellin or batting, and I use a 1/4 inch fusible fleece, and the backing, as I talked about before, was a heavy felt, or if you're going to make it completely reversible you just need to double the fabrics. Now because it's a 3D type design, we do use water soluble stabiliser, and it's the fabric type, and we use 2 layers. As you can see there, I'm just showing how we hoop the 2 layers, and we use the pinning method. This is to stop any movement in the hoop. Now if that technique's new to you, there are more detailed instructions videos on the website. So let's get started. So the first thing we do is we hoop our stabiliser, and we stitch the first colour, which is just the outline of the first segment. Now what I'm doing there, that is the heavy felt. I'm just floating that underneath my hoop because you can see through and you can see the edges. You can always take the hoop from the machine and tape the backing fabric to the back. Now we're placing our piece of pellin or batting on top of the hoop, and we're going to stitch that down. Now this gives you the guideline for the 2 separate pieces of fabric. Down, we take the hoop from the machine, and we're just going to cut away all the excess pellin. This just makes it easier to remove all bulk in the seams. Right, so I've just put this here. So if you did want to make it reversible, you're just going to mirror exactly what you do on the front of the hoop on the back of the hoop. So you'll see here the next step on the front of the hoop is to add a piece of orange fabric. Now if you wanted this completely reversible, you also tape a piece of orange fabric over that guideline on the back of the hoop, and you would have the orange fabric wrong side to the hoop on the back. You take it to machine and you stitch that down. Gone real fast here. Then you're just going to remove the hoop from the machine again and just cut away that little bit of excess fabric there, just where you're going to put the leaf. Now if you've got reversible, you would do that on the back as well. Now you're placing your green fabric over the guideline. Again, if you want it completely reversible, do the same on the back. You take it back to your machine and you're just going to stitch that green fabric down. Okay, so now it's just time to cut away all the excess fabric on the front and the back of the hoop. Now I was very close on that, that particular one. Now many people ask about the scissors that we use, and I always say probably the sharpest ones are the best to use. I alternate between these dressmaking scissors that I'm showing there, and I've also got a pair of duckbill scissors from Echidna that I also use. You'll probably see them later in the video. So that's the back done, and we're just going to do the same for the front. Oh, there's the duckbill scissors. Now what I'm showing here is the first segment, and you actually do exactly the same for all the other 5 segments of the pumpkin pieces, exactly the same. So I do show this bit in detail and then just summarise it as we go through, because you just follow exactly the same steps. Okay, so we've cut away all that excess fabric, front and back. Now we take it back to the machine. Now I've got orange thread in here, just so you can actually see, but in the rest of them I just used a white thread here. But basically what happens is it just zigzags all the edges, all the raw edges, apart from the joining sections. And then the next thing is we're just onto the actual embroidery. Now this is where if you wanted to have it completely reversible, you would have 3 bobbin changes, because we've got a brown thread, an orange thread, and the green thread. And rather than make you watch the whole lot, I think we've just gone right through. So we've stitched the brown and now we're just stitching the green. As I said, this is what we do on all of them. So there we go, you've got segment 1 completed. So we remove it all from the hoop, and then we're just going to trim away the excess stabiliser kind of closely to the satin stitch edges. But on here we've got 2 joining stitches. You can see that one there. You cut close as you can on that raw edge. And then, as I say there, the pieces that have got the satin stitch, they're completed. So you just do it close. Another raw edge, you cut it as close as you can. And that's segment 1 of your pumpkin completed. Now, this is exactly the same for the next lot. So this is actually section 2. You can see I've got different fabrics there. And we've just got, we've got it to the point where we have done all the fabric pieces and we have zigzagged the edge. So now what we're going to do is there is a raw edge there, where we're going to join the first piece. So you can see you're actually matching stitch line upon stitch line. There's a slight overlap, so yeah, you can just see what I'm doing there. And get your handy tape and just tape it in place. Now I don't like stitching over tape, so I always tape mine sort of outside of the stitching line, but personal preference. Now we're going to take that off to the machine, and it's just going to do a zigzag stitch to join. So if you can slow your machine down, you could. Once you've done these a few times, you get more confident with it, but it is just a zigzag stitch to join. And there you go, you've done your first join. Now just have a check at this stage. What you need to look at is to make sure that you've caught both pieces of fabric in, which you can see I can see there. Now if it hasn't, if you've got a bit where it hasn't caught the edge, unfortunately you do have to undo it and do it again, because that makes the join perfect. As you see, magic of video, I've just gone back in there and I've done the brown satin stitch, the orange satin stitch and the green satin stitch. And you're going to repeat this 3 more times. So you've got the two pumpkins, then you've got the third pumpkin slot, we've got the 4th pumpkin and the 5th pumpkin. Now I hope this doesn't go too fast for you. What you can do is rewind and go through those original steps again, because they are the same. I just don't want to bore you all by showing you every single step when it is exactly the same. So what I'm doing here, I am going to show every step because this is the bow. Now this is slightly different than the pumpkins, and you could also use this design completely by itself as a bow. So we start again with the 2 layers of water-soluble stabiliser. We put the backing fabric on, and I forgot the hanging tab, but luckily I did another bow so I can show you there. So basically you add your hanging tab right smack centre in the middle of that little bit. What good is a wreath without a hanging tab? I don't know. But anyway, you do that and then you add your pellin. Same steps as before, just only the one fabric. So then we attach the pellin. And as before, we're going to cut away the excess pellin. That's another idea. You could just add extra bows to the wreath, or butterflies. That's another one. There'll be lots of things that you could add to it. There we go. I'm putting the bow fabric on the top. Then you're back at the machine and you're just going to do that stitch around. So it goes around twice just to give you a nice cutting edge. And then as before, we're just going to remove it from the hoop and cut away all the excess fabric on the front and the back of the hoop. So exactly the same steps as before. And it's just going to zigzag round and stop where you're going to do your joins. Now you might notice in the photos that I have a darker purple bow as well, so not only did I forget to add a hanging tab, I also didn't like this colour, so it was too late, so I just did another bow. Anyway, back to the design. So you've got some raw edges there, and basically this is where you're going to fit your two sides of the wreath. Again, joining the same way you did with the other side, which is stitch line upon stitch line. Now it does the left side first, so we're going to tape that one in place first. Now you can see that's you join where the raw edges are, in between the zigzag. And as I say, stitch line upon stitch line. So we've got that taped in place. And now we're back off to the machine. Now you just keep the other side just out of the way while you're stitching this bit. And you'll be an expert at joining by the time you're finished. Oops, excuse my arm. And there we go, just have the quick check. That's fine. Now you just stitch the next colour, which just basically zigzags the bottom of that bow along to where you're going to do the next join. And you're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. as before, it's just going to zigzag along that join. You have to be a wee bit careful getting it into the machine at this point. And that's probably all the hard work done now. So once you're happy with that second join, you're off and you're just going to do the bow. As again, by the magic of video, we've just about finished it. And that is your wreath done. Now, as before, you're just going to remove the hoop from the machine and cut away the excess stabiliser close to the edges, and then just get some hot water and just smooth away that water soluble. Now, if you want, you could wash it, like if you were worried that it was going to get a lot of moisture or get wet or something like that, you could put this in the wash and wash all the water soluble out completely. I haven't bothered. It just depends where you're going to put it. And there you go, there's the finished design. As I say, I quite like the ones with the grape. I must admit, I do not like this sort of pinky colour bow, so there's my second bow. I've added that on, and that kind of gives it a 3D effect. And so there are some other samples of what you could do. Now, I've just placed them on there. In terms of how you could attach them, I guess it would depend on whether you want it to be permanent or not. I mean, if you come up with a design and you love it and it's just going to be that forever, then what you could do is with your sewing machine, you could just stitch on the edges, just the bits that aren't freestanding, or bits basically you could use some double-sided tape just to tape things in. Or hand sew them on. It just really depends on how you want to do it. I guess the idea being that, yes, you could have it for fall, and then you could just add the extra back design or something like that for Halloween. So I figured that would be kind of semi-permanent. So I would probably, just use double-sided tape. Anyway, I hope it gives you some ideas, and I hope you enjoy the design, and I really can't wait to see what you guys come up with. Thanks so much. Bye.